2,285 days ago. I'm out of shape, overweight, my health is on a bad trajectory, and a delivery truck pulls into my driveway. The delivery would change my life. What was it? That treadmill. This is the first workout I did on the treadmill. It's embarrassing to even show this to you. I couldn't run 3 miles at a slow pace. And it was hard. But that day, I told myself, no matter how hard, I would get on the treadmill every single day. And I would do the workout. I'd finish it, even if it was difficult. I would make that commitment to consistent progress. Now, around this same time, I happened across a book called Born to Run. It's the story of an indigenous people group in Copper Canyon, Mexico. Widely unknown before this book, but these were the best runners in the world. Somebody discovers them. They take them to a race in the Rocky Mountains called the Leadville 100. And it puts this race on the map as well. As I'm reading the book, barely able to do a 5K, I decide I'm going to do an ultramarathon, but not just any ultramarathon, the Leadville 100. Several years later, I'm ready to finally register for the race in late 2022. And so I get registered, and the Leadville race is very difficult because Leadville is the highest city in North America. It sits at 10,200 feet high. When you arrive, you'll probably have some level of altitude sickness. People there will have an elevated pulse, similar to doing cardio, as they sit in an armchair. You may feel nauseous, dizzy, all of these things. As if that's not hard enough, that's the profile of the race. It's not flat. It's up and down through the Rocky Mountains the entire time. So I need a coach. And I find this guy. He becomes a dear friend of mine. Scott Jordan is a 63-year-old ultramarathoner. But he's like barely human. He's a medical doctor, an MBA. He's had multiple large business exits. He's done hundreds of ultramarathons, including a dozen this year at age 63. And we just lost our screen. We'll do our best to get that back. I'm just going to keep telling you the story otherwise, though. So Scott's this great guy, and so I end up having a phone call with Scott. And during this phone call, Scott tells me what we're going to be doing over the next 230 days. And he details out this training block. But if you know anything about me, I try to impress people sometimes. And so I tell him, okay, yeah, you laid out this training block and you're the coach, but maybe I know a little bit more than you on this one thing. And so I'm going to actually do a 30-mile run on January 1st. He stops me right there. He says, David, what you do on January 1st does not matter. What matters is that you are consistent. Consistency will win over heroics every time. He says to do a 30-mile run on January 1st is similar to just starving myself for one day and expecting to lose weight and that would be a good diet. He says that doesn't work for him. Then he goes on to tell me about this platform we're going to be using. It's called Training Peaks. And this platform basically pushes the workouts to the watch. And he says, once we start pushing these workouts to the watch, you are done ever running for fun. You will run for heart rate zone, you will run for vertical gain, you'll run for intervals, but you won't just run for fun. And he tells me something that really sticks with me. He goes, in Training Peaks, and if you could see it, you would see there's green lines on workouts you complete successfully. In Training Peaks, if you get 2 reds in a month, you will not finish the Leadville 100. He said it didn't matter why you had the reds. You could have the red workouts due to being sick, job, family, travel. 2 reds you don't finish. It would stick with me. I'd travel 45 days over that next training block. And during those 45 days, I'd be in empty hotel gyms over and over again at 4 a.m. doing my workouts. So it's not about one day. It's about stringing together hundreds of days. So I line up at the start of the Leadville 100 in the dark, and the shotgun goes off. From here, the course takes you around this beautiful alpine lake called Turquoise Lake. And you run around the lake mostly in the dark. Once you get to the other side, you are a half marathon in, and the race is just getting started. From there, you're going to climb up a mountain called Sugarloaf Mountain. And you'll reach the top of Sugarloaf Mountain, and there's this really technical descent called Power Line. And you're going to go down this descent. And the thing about an out and back course is it's a little bit depressing. Anything you're doing now, you're going to have to go the reverse direction in the middle of the night later on. So from there, you climb Mount Elbert, and then you descend into Twin Lakes. Twin Lakes is this beautiful little town right here that you see. And so Twin Lakes will have these, we got the pictures back, guys. Give AV a hand. So you come in here, you're 38 miles in. Your legs are pretty tired. But the pros will tell you this is where the race actually starts. Because from here, you're going to do a couple miles across the valley there, some river crossings, and then that mountain behind is called Hope Pass. You get to cross that not once, but twice. Now, going up the first time was brutal. It was hot. On the way up, I'd lose most of my teammates that were friends. They wouldn't be able to finish the race. One dropped for cardiac reasons, another for acute kidney failure. I would throw up 24 times on the way up to the top of the mountain. It sucked. You get to the top, you start back down the backside of it, and in the back of your mind, you're looking at every step you go downhill thinking, I've got to come back up this. On the way back up, all of the GI issues caught up with me. I was so depleted with calories that I couldn't take another step. And I could have quit there. But I just kept taking in calories and eventually could start taking one step at a time. By the time I get to the top of the mountain, the views are great, but the cost to get here was high. Most of the people on my team were done at this point. So fast forward, we make it to the finish line. It was the lowest finish rate in over a decade. Less than half the people would finish that day. I was one of the only first-timers to finish. And so we get done, and there's a lesson here. Consistency over heroics. In every area of our life. Consistency over heroics in our finances, it builds. In our business, it builds. In our every area, fitness, everything. So it's easy to think about heroics, but heroics are only needed if your systems fail. If you don't have occupancy, the temptation is heroics. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to slash the rates. You only need to do that because you failed. You failed to build a brand, the marketing funnels, everything else that would have kept the calendar full. So now you're overreacting like somebody that stops eating expecting to lose weight. After Leadville, I see this ad for the Keys 100. It looks kind of like this. It's billed as this beautiful race through paradise. Starts in Key Largo, runs past turquoise beaches, white sand, swaying palm trees. This is what the marketing said. All the way to Key West. So I'm like, I'm going to do that, but I don't quite buy the marketing, so I'm going to get heat adapted. So I get a membership to this sauna gym where you can work out inside of a sauna on a treadmill or a bike. It gets you ready for the race because I knew we had to prepare for the worst case conditions that might be out there. It was a good thing. These are the actual warnings from my phone the morning of the race where they said, don't go outside, it's too hot. This is the hottest weather we've ever had in the history of the Keys. 115 degrees on race morning, and we're lining up to run 100 miles. Not such a good plan, probably. So we're excited. We leave. Things are going well. It looks kind of like that at first. 20 miles in, I can still do a selfie with a little bit of a smile. Shortly after, though, that 115-degree heat starts to catch up. So the asphalt would be 200 degrees. My shoes would melt by the end of the race. I start to overheat. Around 30 miles in, my vision comes down to about this narrow. Same time I'm getting dizzy, I'm going slower, and my pulse rate's going higher. It's the signs of heat stroke, if you're wondering. And thankfully, my team would take good care of me. We had some mechanisms to crash the body temperature down. We were able to regroup and keep going. Here I am with my son. He paced me for over 10 miles that day. I really wanted to quit. There were encouraging words given, and thankfully I kept going, and we kept the cooling mechanisms going, and we kept getting there closer and closer. On this long day, 20% of my teammates would be hospitalized due to the heat. 2 people that were running the race got hit by cars that day. It was not an easy day out there by any means, but we make it to the finish line. On a day where less than 1 in 3 people finished the race, my second race ever to go a 100-mile distance, I finished in the top 10%. But the lesson here is there is the power of a 1-second decision. Over and over again that day, I could have quit. It would have felt really good. It would have stopped the suffering in the moment and traded regret forever. We have 1-second decisions in our business too. Imagine you see an employee that's operating out of the cultural norms of your business. They aren't doing what you know is what your culture is. They aren't taking care of the guests the right way. The temptation is to make the easy decision, the 1-second decision. It's a peak weekend. I don't want to have the headaches of this problem, so we ignore it. That's a negative 1-second decision. It will compound and it will hurt your business because eventually people will quit due to that and the whole culture will change. Race 3, I'm going back to Leadville. Not just to finish this time. I want an elite finish. They call it a big buckle finish. I want to be in the top 5%, up there with all the pros. And I did the work for it. So this time, during my training block, I trained the equivalent of climbing to the top of Mount Everest 15 times in vertical gain, getting ready for the mountains. We moved the family to Colorado to fully acclimate. I was committed. Race week was perfect. My friends were there. My family was there. I got to see teammates that I hadn't seen in a year. Things were going well. I told anybody that would listen I would have an elite finish. I'd put in the work, and I was there for a certain purpose. Things started out really strong. And they kept going strong. Strong doesn't mean easy. Here I am going up that power line section. It was a tough section still, but the training was paying off. I was passing people left and right. Here I am coming down into Twin Lakes. We had planned this very extensively, my coach and I was 30 seconds ahead of plan 38 miles in. Everything was literally perfect until it wasn't. The race fell apart for me, and in an instant, no matter the training I'd done, the work that I'd done, it hurt because I wasn't going to get the big buckle. I would PR on the course that day. I'd finish, but if I'm being honest with you, I really wanted to just quit, to crawl in a hole. I'd told everybody I was going to accomplish something. I'd done everything in my power to do that, yet I had failed, and in a big and in a public way. Despite all of the commitment, despite all of the sacrifice, I finished with tears behind those glasses. It was not a fun day. The lesson here is not failure. The lesson is set goals that are worthy of you. If you know you will achieve your goal, it is not a goal at all. It is a to-do list. The only goals that matter in business, I would say, are the ones we aren't sure we can achieve. JJ, we saw him on stage earlier today. This is his company, Beachside. They had the goal of a direct booking site that would actually drive volume, that would make a difference for their brand. They went after that goal with a financial investment for it. They publicly stated it to owners that they were doing it, and they went out and did it. In business, it's no different than in racing. Set big goals that we aren't sure we can achieve. Fast forward a few weeks after Leadville. I'm the overall winner of a 50K in the Nashville area, but in the process, I tear my hamstring. It was a painful race. I find myself at this physical therapy clinic about 3 times a week. We're doing strength training, trying to recover the muscle group that's harmed. And while I'm there one of the days, I happened across this thing called the Grand Slam. And the Grand Slam is this series of ultramarathons that happens in 90 days. And it starts with Old Dominion, then Vermont, Leadville, and finishes with one called Wasatch. Now, they're all 100-mile races. They're all in the mountains. The least amount of vertical gain, to put this in perspective, if you've ever done a 5K, imagine you had ladders end to end for the entire 5K. and you taped all those ladders together, and you had a helicopter lift it up. That's how far you climb on the smallest climb out of these 4. People were like, hey, you don't have to do something. You don't have to set another audacious goal. That's too big. Just recover for a season. And instead of recovering, though, this is what I said we're going to do. So the first race in that Grand Slam is the Old Dominion 100. It's through the mountains of Virginia. It's the second oldest 100-mile race in the world, and it's on all these logging trails and jeep roads up and down the mountains the whole time. Pat Botts, the lady in this photo here, she's one of the first ladies to ever run 100 miles. She is the founder of this race. I got to sit down and ask her, why did you start the race? And this is what she said: it's good to do things that can't be done. As I lined up the next morning at the fairgrounds at 4 in the morning, and thunder is in the distance, those words were echoing. And by the time we started, it wasn't in the distance at all. We were in the middle of a thunderstorm. It was pouring down rain on us, and the trails were muddy throughout the mountains that morning. It was miserable. By mid-morning, thankfully, the rain lets up. For a second, we thought we were going to get a break. Then the sun came out. 100% humidity, some of the highest temperatures they'd ever seen on the course. In spite of all of that, though, somehow I set a record through 50 miles, and we were on pace for this goal of a big buckle at this course. The easiest parts of the course, still uphill and muddy. And it was like this, just up and down, technical course all day. Ultimately, we crushed the goal. We get there almost an hour ahead of schedule, and instead of just finishing or just big buckling, the weirdest thing had happened. On the same day that other people that were going after the Grand Slam saw their hopes and dreams crushed on the very first race that they weren't able to finish, I was now in the standings in the top 3 for the Grand Slam of 2025. I also got the silver buckle. There's a truth here, though. The truth is, when you verbalize the impossible goal, people want to get behind you. Your network can become your tailwind. By just saying, I'm doing this thing that's so big, that's so crazy, people want to be a part of it. It's the same in property management. When we were starting our vacation rental company in the Smoky Mountains, we didn't have a single listing yet. And I told a realtor, we're going to be the biggest company here. We're going to have a booking site that drives more volume here than any booking site in the area. He believed in us. He referred us business. We accomplished the goal, but he sent us almost 100 listings along our growth trajectory there. Partnership power is a big thing. Tell people what you're going to do. Next up, Vermont. It's the second race in the Grand Slam. So this one's up and down through the mountains the whole time. You're going to get about 17,000 feet of vertical gain across these covered bridges. You're racing horses on this. It's the last remaining race in the world that you get to race against horses. And it's just beautiful. But beautiful doesn't mean tough. These guys would help me that day. That's my son, Paul and Will. And they would help push me to my limits because it was going to be a really long, hard day. They would keep me moving forward and mentally tough. This is an average scene from the day, climbing hills like that or descending hills like that. There's barely a flat section at any point. So this is the last 100-mile race to have the horses, as I was saying. So there I am with 4 horses coming up on me. I am proud to say I beat 3 horses this year. I'm one of the runners that can say that, so that's pretty cool. There's more to that story. Find me and I'll tell you. Covered bridges like that. By the time I get here, we're 50 miles in, and the goal feels pretty safe. We're going for 24 hours. The temptation, though, is to let up and coast. So if we let up and coast, though, we have to live with ourselves. We will know, even if we hit the goal, that we did not empty the bucket that day. So this beauty's deceiving. It's these rolling gravel roads, and I'm wrecked. We're about 60 miles in at this point, and I'm telling the crew, hey, the goal is safe. I've got 2 more 100-mile races coming up in the next 5 or 6 weeks. Just let me go a little easier. They weren't having any of it, though. They were like, no, go as hard as you can. They set my goals, and we kept on hitting them. I pushed with everything I had all the way to the finish line. Instead of finishing in 24, I finished in sub 22. It was this mental toughness, though, to get that done. It's almost harder to keep pushing with everything you have in you when you're hitting a goal than when you're falling short. Because when you're falling short, you want to hit it. But when you're hitting it, what's there to motivate you? That day, I would end up being first in the Grand Slam by a pretty good margin. So they keep totaling your score across all these races. But that day, the lesson is mental toughness is built and forged through daily discipline. If you hit snooze on an alarm clock at 4 in the morning and you're an ultra athlete, you are telling yourself a lie if you think you will be mentally tough at mile 70. It doesn't just show up if you've ignored it up until that point. I tell new athletes this on a regular basis. But in business, it's the same way. I'll talk to some of you people, and you'll be like, hey, I'm gonna have 100 units. Great. What are you doing in the daily discipline? How are you forging? What is going on? Do you have your marketing funnels set up? What are you doing to plug the leaky bucket? Are you doing proactive owner communications, or are you ignoring it, hoping it's gonna go away? If so, you're no better than the person that hits snooze on an alarm clock at 4, thinking they're gonna be great at mile 70 up a mountain. Race 6, going back into Leadville. It's pretty nice. This time I go into Leadville confident. I know the course inside and out. But as every ultra runner that's ever been there can tell you, this course has a weird way of humbling you. At the expo, it's fun. You kind of feel invincible. You're strutting around like you've done something. The shotgun hasn't even gone off. The race hasn't even started. People are wanting to get selfies with me since I'm in first on the Grand Slam at this point. You start getting overconfident. Then the shotgun goes off. You've done the math. The math works. You know where you're going to finish, roughly. We run out of town. Here I am at the top of power line that year. About a marathon in right there. Things were going okay. Still running smooth, but the muscles weren't feeling quite right. And I'd never had any issues in a 100-mile race at this point. 4 miles later, something would happen. But thankfully, this guy had got me ready for it. He had sent me this video of the South Carolina women's basketball coach. She had told her team, it doesn't get easier, we handle hard better. It does not get easier, but we handle hard better. At mile 30, my muscles lock up and the forward momentum takes me to the ground. I'm lying beside the course at a point where I've never had an issue running 9-10-minute miles even through the mountains. And I can't go. My muscles are just spasming. I'm sitting there thinking, I was hoping for this top tier finish and to win the whole thing, and now I'm not even gonna finish this one race, much less win. This guy, Matt, he's like a trail angel that happens by in the minute and gives me sodium. He correctly identifies that I'm upside down on my sodium, and I'm able to get back up. Sometimes in life and in business, it's these simple things. Something as simple as salt that can keep you moving forward. But that mantra would remain my mantra the rest of the race as I battled quite a few things. Because here's the thing, ultra marathons are never easy. I've done a lot of them now. They're never going to be easy, but we get better at handling hard. It's the same way in business. I was talking with somebody about scale today. Scaling is not going to get easier, but the more times you do it, you know what to expect. You know how to scale your business. So growth isn't going to get easier either. It's kind of like that. It doesn't get easier, but we handle hard better. 18 days after I finished Leadville 100, I'm lined up in Wilderness Park. My body's broken. It's fatigued. It's exhausted. I'm scared. I don't want to run. I really did not want to be there. I'm 31 minutes out of first down because of how poorly Leadville had gone. I blew an hour lead going into Leadville. And so I'm behind a guy that's won the Grand Slam twice and finished it 7 times. One of 2 people in the 40-year history that's ever won it twice. I don't know the course at all. He knows it inside and out. I do know that the course has 24,000 feet of vertical gain. People's slowest miles are the downhill miles because they're very unsure footing miles with big drop-offs, and that the weather is going to be a challenge. So all of this is daunting. But then I tell myself, if at the beginning of this, 90 days ago, you had told me I'd be lined up on the final race of this with a chance at first, I would have told myself, that's awesome, go for it. So I have no choice but to give it everything I have. The first few miles that day are just like winding, rolling hills. But then you start this steep climb. And when I say steep, imagine a 5K that starts at the bottom of the Grand Canyon and finishes at the top. So we're on that steep climb, and it's so steep you can reach out and touch where your feet are about to be right in front of you. And a few people in front of me, stirs up a wasp nest. And it's still dark. Our headlamps show these yellow jackets swarming us, all around us. I'd end up taking about 15 stings in the next 30 to 45 seconds. There was nowhere to go. It was a drop off to our right, a rock wall to our left, people in front of us and behind us. Some of the people had to drop out due to the stings. Instantly, we had the elevated pulse that comes with those types of stings. We had additional pain, some muscle cramping that came from that. But it didn't change the fact we had to keep climbing. Finally, we get past this last point, 2 miles here, where you're literally using hands and feet to get to the top, and this is the view. 7 miles in, with 93 miles stretched out in front of us from left to right, where we're going to be running across the mountaintops for the rest of the day and night. The race's name is 100 Miles of Heaven and Hell, and it's correctly named. Trying to make up time on the person that was in first felt like running on the razor's edge. You go too fast and too hard, put too much effort on some of these climbs, you'll end up washing out, because every year about half of the people do. But you go too slow, you don't get to catch them. My team would help give me targets, and my pacers would help tell me, hey, we need to be a little faster or a little slower. And it hurt. There was this image in my mind, though, of a boxer stepping into the boxing ring. That boxer doesn't say, I hope I don't get hit in the face today. He is not saying, I hope it doesn't hurt today. He's saying, I get in this ring to win today. And that was the mentality I tried to bring to mile after mile. I wasn't there for that mile to not hurt. I was there to win the mile, to win the 100 yards over and over again. At mile 90, my pacer tells me, I'm doing the math, and you're in first, and you're so far ahead you can let up now. It has an opposite effect. We have less than 10 miles to go. I push. Mile 92, I get to pick up my son. He gets to watch me struggle through those last 8 miles to the finish line. And here we are, coming across the finish.
And if the math checks out, this might be your Grand Slam winner. We got to do some math. But this is 400-mile races and 4...
So I was able to win the 2025 Grand Slam top athlete in the world. But when I was out there that day, the lesson to me was this from race 7. Each of us gets a chance to direct our life's movie. And I was thinking, if I was directing this, and this was a movie, what would I want to happen? I would want the guy that had never done a race till he was in his 40s. The guy that's a type 1 diabetic, that the doctors and the people said, you can't even do one of these, much less 4 of these in 90 days. The guy that had the torn hamstring, that was coming into the race in second place behind the only person that's ever won it multiple times. I'd want that guy to come back and win. That would be the movie that I would write. And so as I was running the race, I wrote that movie in my mind. It's the same way with our businesses. What movie are you writing for your business? For your life? This year, the blockbuster movie was obviously the Costco-Vacasa merger, right? And I got a front row seat to that. I'm a senior advisor to Vacasa. I've been talking with Steve about this for the last year and a half. Steve wrote the movie. He believed in it when nobody else did. Are you guys writing the movie? Somebody in this room is going to write a movie that's not one that puts me to sleep. And I'll get to interview somebody in this room next year on stage. That's my hope. These are the 7 lessons. This isn't about one big effort at one point. It's about taking these lessons back home and applying them to our businesses and to our lives. Because I can tell you, in 40 years, only 400 people have ever even finished the Grand Slam. There's been 40 winners, and it's impossible that I would do this. It's just simply not possible. But here's the problem. We're all lying to ourselves, and we say this thing is not possible. We are saying we can't do it. It's too big of a goal. I don't know how to get through that thing. But we need to ask ourselves an important question. Do our excuses matter more to us than the results, than living a fulfilling life? Is the excuse really that important? I want you to leave here motivated and inspired. But I can tell you when the 4 o'clock in the morning alarm clock goes off, whatever motivation and inspiration you are feeling in this moment right now will be gone. So those 7 lessons, when we apply those in our lives, that can persist past the point where this motivation begins to wear off. Because I can tell you the greatest gift you can give yourself is living a truly extraordinary life that you can look back on and be proud of moments. And I want to encourage every single person here to do things that simply cannot be done.